My name's Ashley Floyd. I grew up as a Georgia native in a town called Winder, Georgia, and then went to college at the University of Georgia nearby in Athens. As far as my compositional style, I think as with all composers, it's kind of evolved as it's gone along. I think earlier in my career, I was writing the very meticulous, very complicated textures that need a lot of rehearsal to fit together. I think these days, I have found not only just more success, but also that I'm enjoying the process of writing more by learning to get out of the way and trust the performers and write music that that they feel like they can put themselves into, that they're not feeling like they're having to figure out all the time. This actually was my third time uh, entering the Rapido competition. But let me be clear, it's actually my first time actually completing and sending in a piece. Kind of said to myself, you know what? Even if it's not the greatest piece I've ever created, this year I'm going to actually send something in. There's no excuse since I'm kind of on quarantine and around the house anyway. I really wanted to involve specific performers. And so actually I only gave myself 7 days to write the piece, because the other 7 days were to send off to performers virtually and have them send me back recordings and then edit those things together. I knew that my performers would also be in a similar situation. So I knew I wanted to write a piece that I could send to them and that would still work without necessarily everything timing up exactly right. So I knew I wanted a really free-formed piece that had a narrative. In other words, it would still have a climax and have a shape to it that wasn't just allowed to kind of run out at whatever speed, et cetera, but one where it was not necessary for the performers to actually lock in their part, because I knew that my performers wouldn't have a lot of rehearsal time, that they'd have to be able to kind of record on their own and then send to me. I didn't want to ask too much of them because they were just donating their time. We're all going through the pandemic together, but not a one of us is having exactly the same experience. So how could I reflect that musically, of having the different musicians seem to be going at their own pace in their own kind of emotional, narrative, simultaneously? How can I make that clear? If I were sitting in the audience listening to my piece, I would hope that the other audience members would be paying attention to each individual musician as kind of an individual, as opposed to a quartet that's actually really working together. I really made an intent to have each musician of the quartet have a different and independent sort of task or musical idea that they're working themselves through at the pace of their own breathing. So all of the phrases themselves, they all begin together, all starting together. And then over the course of their own natural breathing, which of course is unlikely to be the same pace or the same length as the other musician, they get farther and farther kind of torn apart in terms of their pacing. But they're all trying to complete a relatively simple musical task. So you can kind of focus on each one. And then obviously the composite sound just kind of washes over you as a result.